this is Sabina at Cross Keys Crafts with day 14 of my Christmas card challenge. Today was a proper challenge for me as well, because I had planned to make some white on white Christmas cards. I have never made white on white cards. I've seen them for wedding cards or even birthday cards, and I always had this idea I want to make one. I've never made it in all the 2.5 years I've been making cards. So I thought I'll take this as a challenge, and I made 2 cards that are slightly different, and I want to show you lots of options of what you can do. And especially I want to show you quite a few tips, techniques today, because I have used lots of different things on these cards. So I'm not going to copy these cards today, but I'm showing you little things I have used and done to make these. So the first one, I have used this silhouette die. I've just cut it from hammered cardstock, because I think if you make a white on white, you just don't want plain white cardstock. You need some texture, or some, as you will see, some glitter, some shimmer, to get some sort of dimension onto the cards. So I used some hammered cardstock. I'm going to link to all the materials below and cut this out. This die is actually, it might be for a slimline card, it's actually a bit wider, but it didn't matter. I just cut it to size here. I have then cut a sentiment. I originally cut this from some shimmer cardstock, or sorry, glitter cardstock, but I found it didn't quite match, because as you can see, this is actually, I used some ribbon here that's got gold in it, and the glitter cardstock I had was actually a bit too silvery, which is a bit like this, so I didn't like it. I took it off, and I basically cut the sentiment from gold cardstock and then again from white, and just stuck it on, which then ties in quite nicely with the ribbon. With the ribbon, I hope you can see this, I actually have dry embossed this, and I'm going to show you that in a moment, how I did that. I also added a little poinsettia. I just put some shimmer, some sparkle, this Spectrum Noir sparkle, onto it. And again, I'm going to show you in a moment how I made this, because I learned a trick quite recently that makes it so much more dimensional. And then I put some vellum in the background. This is rather thick vellum. Let me just see if I can find and show it to you, which one of my crafty friends Liz gave to me this week. I've never seen thick vellum like this, but obviously you can use thinner one. So, and then I just stuck this onto my 5x7 base. And then for the other one, I thought I want to give you an alternative if you don't have the silhouette die that cuts out the tree. And I thought, what other things can I use? And I've actually used a stencil to create this background forest. And again, I'm going to show you that, or explain that in a moment how I did it. And I'm not going to show you, just talking you through it to keep the video short. Then I've cut these deer out of glitter cardstock. But this is not any glitter cardstock. I made that myself, and I'm going to show you that in a moment, how I did that. And then I cut trees. I've got tree dies here, and I just adhered this distress glitter from Tim Holtz on it, just with some glue. It's the glossy accent, and I adhered that. I had originally embossed it just with some wide embossing just in places, but that wasn't enough shimmer to tie all the other shimmer in. So, and I'm a bit undecided yet how I finish off the card. I have got these little pearl stars and moons and hearts. I'm not really a pearly person, so I don't know yet whether I want to adhere them or whether I want to have a plain sentiment. So I'm going to show you in the thumbnail what I went for in the end. But I thought, until I've decided that, I still want to start the video. So the first thing I'm going to show you is actually this, how to make your own cardstock. As a comparison, this is what I have shop bought. It is actually an adhesive glitter, because I didn't read the small print, and I really like this holographic shimmer to it. But you can very easily make this yourself. All you need is some fine glitter, all brands works. This one's actually from the works. This is one I bought in Germany. I like iridescent glitter, but it has to be, or ideally should be fine. So all you need to do is use some cardstock. Any cardstock will do. This is just 1/2 of a greeting card that I messed up and cut off. You need some adhesive sheets. This one is of this roll I showed you in another video that I bought, but any adhesive glitter is fine. Even if you just have strips, you can just put them down next to each other because you won't see the difference afterwards. And then all you need to do is you peel this off. Don't throw this away, you will need that in a second. You take your piece of scrap paper, which I've just mislaid, so I had it ready. There it is. Make sure you already got a fold in it because you want to pour the glitter back into the jar in a second. So, and the other thing you need, I have got a piece of, this is actually from a cutting board, but a credit card would work. Anything that sort of works like a spatula. And I just lay the release paper just across it. You need that in a moment. And then all you need to do is you pour your glitter all over your cardstock like you would with embossing powder. So you can start on one end and then just let it flow down like this. If you find it's not covered enough, you can go over this again, but it looks fine to me. So get the excess off, put this aside for a moment to pour this back into the container. Put the lid on so you don't have any accidents on the table, because it is a bit messy, but it's worth having the result. So all you need to do now is you use this to press the glitter into the adhesive. Make sure it's properly covered, and then you can go over it with your hands, check that there's no adhesive exposed, should not be sticky anywhere, and then you can get the excess off, and there you go, you've got your own glitter cardstock. And if I compare this with what I've bought in the shop, I can't see the difference. So if you have glitter and you can buy it really cheaply, sometimes even in the kiddie craft sections, you can make any glitter cardstock. So I'm just putting the leftovers of this in here. Put this out of the way. So, and then if you need to tidy up your desk, just use a Swiffer cloth. That's perfect. I'm just wiping it off here in the front, and then that can go in the bin. So there we go. So, and then you can just normally cut out of this cardstock. This is the deer I did earlier. Just be aware that because you've got a film on there from the adhesive, sometimes you need to use a shim. Because it's obviously thicker and a bit stickier when you cut it through. If you struggle cutting it through, use a bit of like packaging foam. This is like a packaging bag that came with some sort of appliance. Just lay it underneath, and then you will have this sort of shim, and it will be able to push through the thicker cardstock. So the next technique I would like to show you is how to emboss the ribbon. So I'll show you again what it looks like. So I used this ribbon. Ideally I would have just one, white ribbon, not with a gold, but this is what I had. You can obviously do this also with patterned ribbons. but I just like this because I wanted it white on white. So what you need to do is you need to put some adhesive on the back. First of all, of course, you measure how much you need. And in order to put adhesive on the back, I just used my normal adhesive strips and I stuck them down on release paper. This is why I always say don't throw these away when you've got them. Like this now, obviously this one from the glitter project is covered in a bit of glitter, but so if you have them from other projects, keep them. And then cut them to size while they're on this strip, because all you want to, you don't want to stick this down beforehand, because it'll be really difficult to cut it once it's on the ribbon. So now I need to cut it off, cut a slither off to make it fit. If it's a bit slimmer, it doesn't matter, as long as it doesn't stick out. So just for demonstration purposes, cut it to this length. So find which one's the front and the back. The back one is usually a bit matte in colour. So, and then you can stick this down. This is actually still a bit too wide, so I'll stick it back on and cut a bit more off. And it won't stick to your scissors either if you do that. So if you, once you peel it off, it'll be too sticky to cut. This you can stick back down again. You might need that for another project. So make sure you flatten this out. There's no wobbles in there. If you have like a bit of a gap, it doesn't matter there. You don't need to have the adhesive everywhere. So, and what you then do is you decide on the embossing folder. I've got so much stuff on my table, I have to see where I put it now. Just cut off the video here and I'll find it. So I found my embossing folder. So I chose this one because I thought the leaves would work nicely with the theme. So when you choose your embossing folder, make sure that the pattern is small enough to show something in the on the actual ribbon, because if you've got a very broad design, then it might not show nicely. You can actually test this, and mine by the way is very good because it's got holes on the edge, so I could actually slide it through there, and then I just used it like this and had a look where I like the look of it, so I can actually see which part of the image would actually emboss on this. So, and then you just put this through the embossing folder. I won't do this now, and you will end up, make sure you've got it the right way around. So you want the debossed side here, so the top will actually be on top of the ribbon. And I didn't bother too much on this side here, so I moved it over there, the image, because I knew I was putting the poinsettia here. But you can, if you have a longer piece or want a longer piece and your embossing folder is rather small, or you want the sideways pattern, you can always put it through twice. Just be careful that you don't squash this bit that you've already embossed. So that is this technique. I've got, actually today I've got a little note to remind me what I want to show you, because there's so many different techniques. So the next thing I would like to show you is how to make the poinsettia a bit more realistic. Because when I first started off, I always thought my flowers never looked like other people's flowers. And the reason for this was basically I stuck them on like this, and then this, and this is what I would end up with. And it looks really, really boring, whereas other people's look really natural. And then I learned that a few weeks ago, that if you use your bone folder to go around the edges like this, or go around the leaves like this, or the petals, then you actually get a lot of dimension. But in order to do this, either you need to mist your flowers a bit with water, or because I've used the sparkle pen on them anyway, this gives me enough moisture to be able to do that. So what I did is I just put the sparkle on these. These are actually mixed cardstock. I think this one was some leftovers from the hammered cardstock, and the others are slightly thicker. So if you do this, they have just enough moisture from the pen to bend nicely. So all you need to do is just go around here. Make sure you hold the middle so the petals don't tear off. Go. I'm going to do the same with the leaves, just to give a little bit of dimension. They do want to come undone actually there where they're cut, but you can always press it down again. So, and then all you need to do, we'll just get some scrub paper to put underneath, is to add some glue in the middle. As always, I'm using my collal glue, and then just offset the next one. Use my pokey tool to press this down in the middle. Again, offset this one. Leave that to dry, and then you can attach the leaves from the back. And with this one, I put just one little drop of the pearls. I showed you them in another video. I've only got the white version at the moment here, I think, which are the Dovecraft ones, which are really good, and I get these from Poundland. So this is how I ended off with this flower, and I think it looks so much more dimensional. So let me just have a look. Yes, the next thing I want to show you, the next technique. As I said to you, if you don't have the silhouette die for the forest, you can actually emboss cardstock with your stencil. So all you need is a stencil. I have got quite a few of the forests. I just went for this one, and because it's not as wide as the card, I decided to put it behind a frame. I then cut it through this. I basically put it through the embossing folder, but I laid the cardstock on here, put this on there, and I used this rubber mat underneath, a silicone mat. I'm going to link to this below. This is actually a baking mat that I've cut to size. I'm using some of that to ink blend on, and this is a special one I just use for die cutting. So all you need for underneath, if you don't have a silicone mat, you can use the packaging again. You need some sort of cushion to be able to push it through. And then if you do it with enough pressure, so play around with your embossing machine, sorry, your die cutting machine, then you end up with this. This is actually the back of it, the negative underneath. So decide which way round you want it. And then I used my shimmer pen, my Spectrum Noir again, sparkle pen on it. This did warp the card a bit, so I actually put this through again on this. So if you decide you want the sparkle, maybe put the sparkle on the cardstock first, and then you can even do that whilst it's still damp, you can put it through. I then cut it to size and just layered it behind the cardstock here. So the last tip I want to give you, oh no, first of all, let's show you all the materials that are sort of ideas for you to use to have white on white. So I've shown you the glitter. This is another one. This is an embossing powder. This is called White Puff, which gives some sort of snowy texture. I had thought about using this here, but then I decided I want a bit more sparkle. So that what I've used on here is this distressed glitter, clear rock candy, which is nice. So you can even use this glitter if you don't want to make your own glitter cardstock. Again, you can just put glue on the cardstock, liquid glue, and then sprinkle that on top, or if you just want random bits of glue and then glitter. Also, another idea is, but I haven't used that on this card, is to use mica powder. I'm going to show you in a future video how you can turn the mica powder into your own watercolor paint. So that's just an idea to use. I've shown you these, the pearl effects, the pearl drops, so you can embellish with these if you wanted to. Oh, for the embossing, if you don't want to emboss all over with your pad while doing embossing pen, and this is what I had originally used on this one, I just scribbled along the edges and then put the embossing powder on it, but I wasn't quite happy with the result of that. But that's another idea. So the last little tip I want to give you, which I used on this card, at first I only, just get this out of the way. At first I only put glue here and here, and then I found that the deer were sticking off a little bit. And I've discovered this myself recently. So if you find you need a bit more glue behind an element, but you've already stuck it down, the way to get glue behind this is you just take a piece of cardstock. So these are 2 bits. They're just from my stash here that I keep on my desk. You put a bit of glue on the corner there, and then you use this to basically go underneath the image where you want the glue. Might cut it a bit slimmer to get into the little bits. So you can then just go underneath there and then press it down, and that's a way to get glue to areas that you have missed out without taking the whole thing off. Okay, I hope you enjoyed these little tips and tricks and my 2 cards. As I said, I will finish this one off and show you in my thumbnail what I went for in the end. I might just do a few little snowflakes from glitter cardstock up there to tie this all in with the rest of the card. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next video.